there's more to be gained by giving themselves a chance to win the Tour with Jonas than there is to just like holstering everything and going to try to win the Vuelta. I mean, they won every Grand Tour last year. Let's roll the dice a little bit.
With Cav, it's different. He's got something different inside him, and like I say, that dominance, it doesn't exist forever in sprinting, and it very rarely does. So Philipsen hasn't had the same year this year, although he's won a lot of races. He's still been getting beaten by other guys, and maybe he won't be as dominant this year.
Yeah, I can see how the sprinter dominance is hard to carry forward after being reminded, given some insight in this latest Unchained season. You know, the in-room discussion between Philipsen and Van der Poel is the G-rated version is flick or be flick.
How is Vingegaard? Has he bounced back from those injuries from the Tour of Basque Country? How has Pogacar come out of the Giro? Is he tired? Probably not. There's a few layers that we need to look at and discuss about, you know, who's going to win the Tour de France.
Welcome back to Beyond the Podium. I'm Brent Bookwalter. We got a good show for you coming up today. We are in the pre-Tour de France hype show mode, just a couple weeks till the start of the Tour de France. We got to look back real quick at last week's Tour de Suisse, the dominance of UAE putting two riders on the podium there. We're also going to look to talk a little bit about a really exciting American ride from Matthew Riccitello, also at Tour de Suisse. And then looking ahead to the Tour, also referencing Tour de Suisse, Mark Cavendish, where's he at? How's he riding? Is he capable of beating that Tour de France stage win record? And then where's Jonas? Visma, where are they at? How's he doing? Are we going to see him at the Tour de France? Is he ready? What does that all mean? We're going to unpack that a little bit. And then also on the topic of many cycling fans right now, Netflix Unchained Season 2 is now out. We got to just go into Unchained a little bit, talk about what we're seeing, hopefully getting a lot of fans excited for the Tour de France. I know it's getting me going, even though I haven't finished this whole season yet. So before we get into that, we got to bring in our special guest for this show, none other than Sam Bewely. Welcome back to Beyond the Podium, Sam.
Good to be back. I always enjoy being back here with you, Brent. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, but I enjoy it when we are together.
I miss it. I feel like sort of it's our show. I know, you know, we got Bob and Christian, TJ, everyone's rolling through Beyond the Podium these days, but it all started with us back in last July. So it still feels natural. Thanks for being here, Sam. Where, as we find ourselves ahead of the Tour de France now, tell us where you're at and what you're up to and what you got coming up.
I'm in Andorra now, back at home. Got a short stint at home before I head off to the Tour de France. I've just finished Tour of Switzerland. So I was the lead DS there at Tour of Swiss, which was great. Obviously, like you mentioned in the introduction, a bit of a standout breakthrough performance by Matthew Riccitello there, the young American guy who's been in our team for just over a year now and showing real potential. But what he did at Tour of Switzerland was really cool. So that was exciting to be part of that, and obviously there with a whole bunch of other guys that are preparing for the Tour de France. Now I'm at home for a week, preparing my own apartment for the arrival of our first child at the end of the month. So just trying to get all my ducks in a row before I head off to the Tour de France.
Ooh, big a month coming up, Bewely. I'm excited for you guys. Yeah, congrats on the impending arrival and entry to fatherhood. I can relate to that as I think last year when we were at the Tour, we were also awaiting the arrival of our daughter just after the Tour. So yeah, I'll be able to relate to you in those the nerves of being away from home, so close to the D-Day of baby arriving. But yeah, excited to have you in the front lines of the Tour. We'll be calling you up and looking for some dirt straight from the team car those weeks you're there. So you mentioned Matthew Riccitello. Let's just start with him because you are his director. He's an American rider, young guy. I'll admit I don't know a ton about him. He's one of these guys that is clearly after the generation from when I retired just a few years ago. So I know he's a climbing superstar. He's got the numbers, as everyone talks about, extremely capable on the climbs. He's a little dude. I remember seeing him around Girona a couple of years ago. What brought him to your team, and how do you see him developing? I've been really impressed to see him translate that physical prowess into results in World Tour stages, because we see it time and time again. Certain guys have the power, they have the actual physical capability, but they cannot get themselves in the right position. So yeah, what tell us about Matthew Riccitello and everything we need to know about him.
You've kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit there, actually, because Matthew, he's from Arizona, from Tucson, Arizona. So sort of an area, I guess you would know really well, Brent, where a lot of winter training camps happen there for professional teams and things like that. And I know that he's when he was a young kid, he was doing a lot of riding with some older professionals, American professionals that have since retired. And he rode for AMGEN, which is a renowned development team based in the States there, run by Axel Merckx. So he spent some time at that team, and then he joined us. And numbers, it's a real interesting thing, because that's a lot. It weighs heavy nowadays, I think, when recruiting talent. It's the first thing that most teams look at, is like, what can this guy do over 20 minutes or 30 minutes on a climb or whatever it may be. And obviously Matthew had world class and world class numbers at a really young age. So he came onto the team, largely based on that, I would say. But as you mentioned, the skill set of navigating European races or European pelotons is something that's not easy. And Matthew's definitely had his challenges with that. He raced the Giro last year, and that kind of got exposed in some degree. We sort of understood that skill set needed to be developed before we could expect results. So we spent a lot of time over the past 6 or 9 months really just focusing on the basics of professional racing, and that's a lot of that is the skill set side of things, navigating the peloton, making sure he understands positioning and how important it is at certain points of a race, anticipating the peloton, anticipating these rushes. So that's been a really big focus point for Matthew. We sort of took things back a step and focused on that. And he's taken a massive step in developing those skills over the last couple of months. And now that he's developed that skill set, he's putting himself in a position where he can race for results. And the first chance he got to do that was at Tour of Switzerland, and he finished 5th overall, and he was 3rd on a stage behind 2 riders from UAE who were, essentially taking the absolute mickey out of everybody else in that race. So I think it was really important that we focused on that skill set development before we put any pressure on results. And now we're really getting to see the level and potential of this young guy. And it's really, really exciting, because the reality is, when you put him at the bottom of a climb and you ask him to go from there to the top of it as fast as he can, he's right up there with the best. So really, really exciting for our team, really, really exciting for him, and I'm sure really exciting for the American audience as well.
Yeah, as an American rider fan, I mean, this is super exciting. You look at that company that he's with on the top of that leaderboard. You got Adam Yates, Almeida, Bernal, Skelmos. He's in front of Tom Pidcock. It's like, whoo. I don't know what you're paying the guy, but I think relative to those boys, he's probably underpaid. So hopefully you guys are gonna wrap him up and take care of him and keep developing him. And I know the Americans love to put the card of like future GC great. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and put that undue pressure on him now, but it sounds like he is developing the goods and has a good head on his shoulders and has high capability. So we'll definitely look forward to following along there.
And he's only 22 years old as well, and he's when you're that age and you sort of come to the European peloton, he's only 18 months into a pro contract, and the first year of his professional career, he was 21 or 20 years old, and in some degrees he sort of got bashed around a little bit, and you lose confidence from that, and that's why we try to put time and effort into developing the skill set and just slowly developing him in that way. And then the results come, which they have done in Tour of Switzerland behind Adam Yates, Joao Almeida. Remembering Adam Yates was 3rd at the Tour de France last year. So he's world class, working for Tadej Pogacar. So, he's one of the best bike riders in the world, one of the best GC bike riders in the world. So I think it was worth that investment. And the fact that Matthew is only 22 years old, and he's got this result now at Tour of Switzerland behind those riders, it's really, really exciting. And we've still got time on our side, so we still don't need to get ahead of ourselves yet. We obviously have a long-term vision of what he's going to be, and that is a GC rider competing for some of the top results. But it is important to remember that that is his age, and we have got time on our side to continue to develop him slowly and progressively, without too much pressure and too much expectation. But certainly the future is bright for him, and we obviously, as a team in Israel Premier Tech, we have we have an aligned vision of where we want him to be in a few years' time.
Sam, tell us real quick while we're still on Matthew Riccitello, what, one of the things I keep remarking on is the ambition and the confidence of these young riders these days. They come onto the scene and they don't give themselves a lot of time to develop, time to progress. They're expecting to win right away. When he bags a big result at Tour de Suisse, like 5th place, where's he at? What's his personality like? Is he one of these shoot for the moon guys that's expecting to also be elbow to elbow with Adam Yates, or is he beside himself, can't believe it? What kind of rider is he as a person and the personality?
No, he understood the gravity of what he achieved there. There's no doubt about that. Like I say, going not to try and harp on it too much, but he also understands that he got, he had a skill set to develop, and he invested in that development of that himself. And when he finished 5th at the Tour of Switzerland, and the result is one thing. 5th obviously it's a great result at Tour of Switzerland, but the way he raced there, the way he matched some of those guys on the climbs, like on stage 7, the final mountain stage before the mountain time trial, which was the last day, he was the only guy the whole race who was able to follow those 2 guys from UAE, albeit not all the way to the finish line, but for a fair period of the climb. So those are the kind of things that you look at, maybe more than the result itself, to take away some real positives about his performances there. So he's hungry. There's no doubt about it. He's hungry. He wants to win. He's motivated to be the best, and that's awesome. He's got a high performance mindset, which is really important. But he understands what he achieved at Tour of Switzerland, and he's really happy with that. And it's all part of the process. And obviously he'll leave Tour of Switzerland now more hungry and more motivated than when he came into it. And that's also important to keep the pressure on, or keep pushing on that emotion.
Yeah, exciting ride. We'll look forward to continue following him. Talking about Matthew there, we can't help but already mention the dominance of UAE, Adam Yates, João Almeida. These guys just destroyed everyone. They really picked up where their leader, Tadej Pogačar, left off at the Giro. Total dominance out of UAE at the Tour de Suisse. I'm looking at these guys. We follow Tadej Pogačar through the Giro. Absolute destroys everyone. A few years ago, we were talking about how maybe Pogačar's weak link was his team. That argument is out the window now. We're looking at 2 guys that are going to go to the Tour de France. They're going to be riding for him. 1-2 at one of the Tour de France tune-up races, the Tour de Suisse. Big results in their own right. Both winning stages, 1-2 on the podium. Can anyone beat these guys now? I think we already knew Tadej Pogačar was going to be likely the favorite now for the Tour de France, with the uncertainty of last year's champ Jonas Vingegaard. Seeing that his team, his co-leaders, his workers just destroy everyone at Tour de Suisse, I don't think anyone's going to be able to touch these guys now.
Well, yeah, it's a multi-layered question, I guess, in some senses. Yeah, like how is Vingegaard? Has he bounced back from those injuries from the Tour of Basque Country? How has Pogačar come out of the Giro? Is he tired? Probably not. There's a few layers that we need to look at and discuss about, who's going to win the Tour de France. But one of the things that's for sure is that UAE is not a team that you have to worry about if you're Tadej Pogačar. I mean, for lack of a better term, and I'm sure they can bleep this out if I'm not allowed to say it since it's not live, but they're taking the piss. And the fact of the matter is, like, if you look at the points, which is a hugely important thing for some teams, not for those teams, but it's a point system that looks at relegation and promotion every 3 years. They've got twice as many points as the second best team this year alone. So that team is the depth there and the results that they're getting wherever they go with whatever team it's mind blowing. And the team that they're going to have at the Tour de France is going to be a team that's going to have absolutely no problems in any situation. And I know that the way that team operates is we saw it at the Giro, actually, that, there was all the stuff in the media constantly day in, day out, like, Pogacar's bullying the Giro. He's not letting anybody else win any stages. He's not letting breakaways be successful and all of these sorts of things. And he said, well, I get paid to win. That's what I'm here. And my teammates train and they work hard and they get paid to support me to win races. So that's the mindset of that team. And when you look at how we don't have to talk about Pogacar, we know who he is. But when you look at his teammates and you look at what Adam Yates did at Tour of Switzerland and you look at what João Almeida did at Tour of Switzerland, I wouldn't be surprised if Vingegaard is not at his level after this injury, if they literally start to think, like, can we run 1, 2, 3 at the Tour de France? Like Visma did at the Vuelta of España last year. And honestly, they've got the guys to do it. It's a difficult strategy to employ, but they have the riders to do it. So I think the conversation about Pogacar not having a strong team means nothing now. There's absolutely no doubt that he's going to have the strongest team in the race. And they're taking a team, not that I know the lineup, but like hearing through the rumor mill of riders that they're taking to the Tour de France, it's a really, really climber heavy group. Not a lot of guys to ride on the flat, which is interesting in some degree, because if you've got the yellow jersey, you need to defend it. But ultimately, they're taking a group of climbers that are all capable of having results themselves. For example, Adam Yates winning Tour of Switzerland. So, that team's going to have no problems at the Tour de France, and actually, they're going to cause a lot of trouble for Visma especially if Jonas is not in his top shape. And clearly, Remco, he's a wee way off. A lot can happen in the course of 3 or 4 weeks after the Dauphiné, but he was clearly not at the level there. Roglic as well. He showed some glitches in Dauphiné. So I think ultimately they've got the strongest leader in the world at the moment, and they've undoubtedly got the strongest team.
Yeah, if anything, Sam, I think like you said, their only possible undoing could be if they did prematurely shift to that attitude or mentality of like, oh, we're so good, we're gonna try to stack it. And this takes me back to a comment Christian Vande, I think, made recently saying, maybe these guys have too many cooks in the kitchen, could be too many leaders. Watching that, I would actually argue that I like seeing Adam Yates and João Almeida grab some personal success at the Tour de Suisse, because I think that does satiate them. They both got to stand on the top of the podium. They got that winning feeling. They did get some of their own time in the spotlight. And now they can turn their attention to really being part of history and, trying to carry out that Giro Tour double with their leader today, Pogacar. We saw those guys, including Adam Yates, ride selflessly, for Pogacar last year. And I think the situation of too many cooks in the kitchen isn't really the case. And after seeing their success at Swiss. But yeah, and interesting. Christian's not here to defend himself, so we can just kind of beat him up on that one.
We can bag him, but they don't have too many leaders. They've got one leader. Like their leader is today Pogacar, and they have. And those guys all know that. Trust me, Adam Yates, João Almeida, all of those guys, they know that today Pogacar is their leader. There's no power struggle within that team, because that team may be a level above everybody else in recent races, but he's a level above his own teammates. So they've got one leader. That's clear. If they want to race to stack the podium, they can do that, but it would never be at the expense of their leader, because if you guys can bleep this out because it's not live, but if the shit hits the fan, those guys know what their job is. They're not going to ride away up the road with somebody else. They're going to wait for Pogacar. So, yeah, they have the riders capable of finishing on the podium in the Tour de France. And if those riders were in different teams, that would be their objective. But they're not. They're in UAE, and they've got today Pogacar as their leader. So they understand that. So I think they've got what they have is the luxury of depth and ability, but they all understand that there's one leader in that team. And I think that's the case, and those guys will do what they need to do.
Yeah, which makes them an extremely formidable force. So also looking back at Tour de Suisse, as we look ahead to the Tour de France, let's talk Mark Cavendish for a minute. We've seen him, a lot's happened in the past 12 months since that hugely emotionally driven experience of seeing him nearly break the record, leave the race with a broken collarbone, think that was the last we saw of him. Now we know he's coming back. He's had a pretty subdued season this year. He's grabbed a couple wins at what we would call like arguably lower level races. Some would say a win's still a win. He's a sprinter. He's still got that winning mentality. I think his team has shored up their ability to support him a little more. Sam, you were actually at Tour de Suisse. You were in the car. We know how that works. The team directors, they see the Gruppettos form and they're giving everyone the kind of form check, seeing who's slobbering all over their bars and how guys are looking. Tell us how Cav was looking at Tour de Suisse in a race where there wasn't much but scraps for the sprinters.
Yeah, he went to Tour of Switzerland, which was and there was a few sprinters that went to Tour of Switzerland. There was we even took one. Pascal Ackermann, Cavendish was there. Jordi Meuse, who won the Champs-Élysées last year, he was there, which is quite interesting given how that race was. There was one stage, which was the first road stage. There was maybe a sprint, but very, very much in the limit. And as it turned out, it was won by Brian Cockard, who won from a reduced group of about 70 or 80 riders, and no sprinters made that finish. So it was interesting to see so many high-level sprinters or top-level sprinters go to Swiss when there were no sprints. But I think the reasoning behind it is just because it's such a hard stage race with big mountains. It's all about building that condition and resilience for the Tour de France. So that's kind of the idea behind doing it. And Cav was there, and I must say, and this kind of gives me a bit of an opportunity to defend myself against the American audience after last year, where I was quite vocal about not believing that Cav would win a stage last year or break the record last year. I was right in the end, but the reasoning behind that was he didn't have Mikhail Morkov, who's been a massive part of his success in the past in other teams. He does have him now, so that sort of gives him a better chance, in my opinion. And then, like you say, talking about Tour of Switzerland, man, Cav looks in good shape. Like, of course, he's not setting the world on fire on the mountain stages, but he doesn't need to set the world on fire. He just needs to get through them safely when you're talking about the time cut, and he also needs to get through them to a point where he can handle the load of those stages to be able to sprint well the next day if there's a sprint after a big mountain stage. And I must say, he looks in really, really good shape. He had his team around him, which I presume would be, the better part of his Tour de France support. They were there with him every day when he was dropped. When he was dropped, it wasn't early. It wasn't by himself. It wasn't in these moments where you think, oh, he's creeping. He's in good shape. He's in really good shape, and he's climbing well. I know that's not sprinting, but it still gives you a bit of an insight into the condition that Cav has. So I think that, on top of the fact he has Mikhail Morkov, I'm still probably not willing to go out on a limb and say he's going to break the record this year. I will say I hope he does.
I'm going to say it.
And I did.
He's going to do it.
Say that. I did say that last year as well. I said he wouldn't do it, but I still wanted him to do it. But this year he's got a better chance. I think things are going in the right direction. He has won a race in a stage in Tour of Hungary. Like you say, a lower level race, but it wins a win. And actually in Tour of Hungary, there were some fast guys there, man. Some really, really fast guys. So he wasn't sprinting against any mugs. He was sprinting against some of the top tier sprinters. So, I'm more positive about the fact that he can do it this year, and I hope he does.
But you hope he does. But why don't you think he will or can't? I'm saying he's going to do it. I believe in the fairy tale.
Well, because Jasper Philipsen won every single sprint stage last year.
All right, touche. Yeah, yeah, maybe. Well, yeah, just about every sprint stage. We still have more pre Tour de France to talk about, Sam. But I don't know how much of the recent season of Netflix Unchained you've watched. I admittedly have not got through all of it. I think I'm 5 episodes in. But talking Jasper Philipsen, I enjoyed this additional unique chance to see some inside behind the scenes. These early episodes in the season were really interesting, following him, his teammate Matthew van der Poel, and it really chronicled that team vibe and sort of just momentum that they got going. They got on that winning way that we talked about a lot on air last year for the Tour de France, and he was nearly unbeatable after that. So I think you do bring up a good point there, in that we did see the rise of arguably the new most dominant sprinter at the Tour de France last year in Jasper Philipsen, and it's going to be a tall order for Cav to go up against him. Sam, have you watched any of this recent season of Unchained and seen those Philipsen episodes that I'm talking about?
I haven't watched a single episode yet, and that's not because I don't want to. I do want to watch it, and I know that, you know, we before this show started and went live, we chatted about the Tour de France Unchained on Netflix, and I think the producer was a bit disappointed when I said that I hadn't seen any episodes, and it kind of sent a bit of a spiral into the show. But I haven't, and I can't change that. I didn't have time to watch any before we went live, so that's the reality of things. But I will watch it. And I'm excited to watch it because I really enjoyed the first season. I love cycling. I love watching cycling, and I'm certainly interested to watch the Netflix series. And by all accounts, the second season is done even better than the first. So that gets me keen to get the Netflix out maybe after we do this recording and start watching it. But it's sort of just going back to the sprinting a little bit there. It's like, you know, Philipsen was so dominant last year, and we've had other dominant sprinters in the past. For example, Marcel Kittel, when he was at his top, he dominated Tour de France's. But it is rare that a sprinter dominates back to back Tour de France's. It is a part of cycling that changes quite quickly. You know, the world's best sprinter may only be the world's best sprinter for 1 year or 2 years, and that's why it's pretty exceptional what Cavendish has done when you think about the fact that he's won 35 stages now, equal with Eddie Merckx, and he was so dominant for so many years in different teams. You know, it is exceptional what he's done, and there's no doubt that he's got something different inside him that gives him a. If it was a different sprinter who we were talking about now, then I'd probably be pretty categorically saying no. But with Cav, it's different. He's got something different inside him, and like I say, that dominance, it doesn't exist forever in sprinting, and it very rarely does. So Philipsen hasn't had the same year this year, although he's won a lot of races. He's still been getting beaten by other guys, and maybe he won't be as dominant this year. And the sprint field itself at the Tour de France could be interesting as well to analyze, because a lot of the top guys, Tim Merlier, Jonathan Milan, those guys are all at the Giro, and they're not going to be at the Tour de France. So the sprint field may not be at the very, very top when it comes to the depth because of those guys that went to the Giro. Obviously, Merlier was there because Quickstep's going all in for Remco, and they want to support him at the Tour de France. Jonathan Milan was at the Giro because he's preparing for the track at the Olympics, so he won't be at the Tour de France either. So the depth maybe is not going to be quite the same, and the dominance of Philipsen hasn't been quite the same. So things are aligning better for Cav this year, I would say.
Yeah, I can see how the sprinter dominance is hard to carry forward after being reminded, given some insight in this latest Unchained season. You know, the in-room discussion between Philipsen and Van der Poel is the G-rated version is flick or be flicked. It's like you kill them or they kill you. It's pretty savage. You know, you have sprinters on your team, Sam. Do you think is the sprinting, is it a subject of, is the sprinting more dangerous? Is it always the same level of danger? Are we seeing the sprinting more dangerous now because the margin is so small? And I don't want to get too far into the weeds and the rabbit hole here, but while I have you here, I got to ask you about this proposed yellow card system for directors and riders, and what you can tell us about that as it pertains to sprinters and going into the Tour de France.
Well, there's clearly a big push for safety in cycling at the moment. And I remember being on the show with you last year, Brent, when we were together covering the Tour de France, and we had multiple days where we were talking about possible relegations or disqualifications and Philipsen changing his line and all of these sorts of things. You don't even have to go back that many years, like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Like that stuff would never, like you wouldn't even sneeze at that. But now all of that stuff's like heavily, heavily under the microscope. But it is the mentality of sprinters, like be flick or be flicked. But they have to be kind of careful now, because it is under the microscope, that you can easily be relegated or disqualified in a worst case scenario from just these sorts of things that we would have seen or thought as normal not that long ago. So that sort of stuff does change it, because sprinters aren't wired to think that way when they're looking at a white line in front of them, 200 meters or whatever. But if they are thinking about it and they are aware of it, then maybe they start touching the brakes a little bit more. That gives opportunities to other guys. Sprinting obviously will become more cleaner. So it's a pretty interesting topic, and it is dominating cycling at the moment, that the safety issue, and that's why they're going to trial this yellow card system. I think throughout a few races this year, and then look to implement it next year, across all races. And I don't know about the yellow card system. Like, it's not football. I think like you got to hope that the person who's got the card in his pocket is not a power hungry, got his high vis vest on, and he's got a whistle in his mouth, and he just wants to start flicking yellow cards everywhere, because there's a lot of shit that goes on in the sports director's convoy, inside the peloton, that okay, maybe it's not always that safe, but it's part of the sport, and you kind of have to let it happen to some degree. Obviously not too much, but hopefully the yellow card system is regulated well, because you could see you could get to stage 21 of the Tour de France, and there might be one team car behind the peloton at that point.
Plenty of drama and debate to unfold. Yeah, I'm bummed you're not going to be there to hash it all out and critique them with us in the studio there, Sam. But yeah, like I said, we'll be hitting you up for the in-race inside those first 2 weeks when you're there. So we're still on Tour de France. Obviously, that's the big headline as we go into these next 2 weeks. We cannot miss talking about Jonas Vingegaard. Is he going to be there? Where is he at? I think last Beyond the Podium show I did with TJ a couple weeks ago, I was thinking, no way, man. I'm looking at his injury list still, the track record of riders being able to return from injuries like that. Now we're seeing these pictures come out from their training camp. He's still there in teens, arguably preparing and training for the Tour. Maybe I'm buying into some sort of Visma propaganda show hype, leading me down to believe he's going to be there. But I'm starting to get the feeling that he's going to be at the Tour, and I don't think that team would even put him at the start if they didn't believe he had a chance. Maybe not the same chance of dominance that we saw from him last year, but I'm feeling like we're going to see him there at the start line, and if he's there, he does have a chance.
I think as well. I think he'll be there, and man, they've won the last Tour de France's, Tours de France. I think we learned that last year on the show. That's how you pronounce it, Brent. Don't forget that this year. But they also won the 3 Grand Tours last year. So how important is it for them to win the Vuelta, for example, this year? Maybe it's not that important. What's important is to win the Tour de France. And without Jonas, they haven't got anybody else who can challenge. Obviously Sepp Kuss won the Vuelta last year, but he hasn't been great this year, and he wasn't great at Dauphiné. He's certainly not at a point where you could say, if we don't have Jonas, at least we've got Sepp. I don't think that's the case at the moment, unfortunately. So if I was Jumbo and Jonas was healthy, Jumbo Visma, and Jonas was healthy and he was fit, and it wasn't, obviously medically advised against, I would just take him and just throw him a hat in the ring, because Pogacar's coming off the Giro. We don't know how he's going to come out of it. It's very, very hard. I mean, when was the last time someone did the Giro Tour de France double? It's been a big topic of conversation, but it's been more than 20 years now. So I would throw my hat in the ring, even if he is a little bit off his best, and just hope the race goes in his way, in his favor for the first half, because by the end of the Tour de France, he's going to be at a good level. He'll take the benefits from those first 10 days or whatever, and he'll be at a high level. Obviously, UAE would need to race strategically, understand that as well, which could make things more difficult. But Is it important for them to win the Tour de France, or at least try to win it? Or is it more important to go, okay, let's give Jonas more time and then go and win the Vuelta? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not in that team. But I would just throw my hat in the ring because they haven't got another option. That's the reality of it at the moment. So give Jonas the best preparation he can have based on what's happened over the last couple of months, and then just see how it goes. I mean, I guess they got Jorgensen, but again, like Matteo Jorgensen, he's probably a pretty genuine podium contender, but I wouldn't say he's going to challenge for the win at the Tour de France.
Yeah, I would say the same. Not to sell Matteo short, because I love the guy. The guy was skiing on his midseason break a few weeks ago, and then he's again back to cruising at the Dauphiné. Really strong ride there. I think he is capable of riding podium at the Tour, but I think even a slightly underprimed Vingegaard is probably a better chance for Tour victory than Matteo or Sepp. And as a fan, like I love this. I love the idea of watching Unchained, these first few episodes even has reminded me and brought me back to that dominance we saw from Vingegaard last year. That TT and that big Queen Mountain stage, those things were out of control, and they come along with all the doubt and sort of skepticism that we also see in those episodes of Unchained from that. But for Vingegaard to come back to the Tour, not maybe be quite his best, that recovery in doubt, some question marks around him, if he is able to persevere through that, still lead his team, still achieve Tour de France success. I mean, to me, that's almost like as defining or more defining in his legacy as a Tour de France champion as winning the 2 back-to-back tours that he won, the past 2 years, and unseating Pogacar during his first Tour de France win. So I love it. It's an awesome storyline, and I think you're onto a great point there, Sam, and that there's more to be gained by giving themselves a chance to win the Tour with Jonas than there is to just like holstering everything and going to try to win the Vuelta. I mean, they won every Grand Tour last year. Let's roll the dice a little bit.
And what's the worst case scenario? You go to the Tour de France and you don't win it. You can still go and win the Vuelta after that. Like he probably could have won it last year off the back of winning the Tour de France. So the worst case scenario is you throw your hat in the ring at the Tour de France, you go there. Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar are levels above any other bike rider when it comes to Tour de France. So the worst case scenario is he probably still finishes on the podium, and then he goes to the Vuelta and wins that. So I can understand that you wouldn't send an athlete that's not ready to the Tour de France, but more from the medical side. 100%. If his health is not up to standard yet, then the smart decision is not to send him. But if he's got the green light medically, and he's in half decent condition, I don't see what the loss is, because if he doesn't go, you don't win the Tour de France. If he does go, you've at least got a chance, and then you can go to the Vuelta and win that if it doesn't go to plan of the Tour.
Yeah, makes sense. I hope we see him there. I think everyone wants to see obviously it's the Tour de France. You want to see the best riders there all showing down with their best form. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. We won't know, obviously, for a few days here. Sam, I think you're part of this process. You're in a team. These Tour de France selections they're happening like real time. I mean, it's the Tuesday after Tour de Suisse. So yeah, I remember when I was a rider, waiting for Tour de France selections like this actual day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after Tour de Suisse. I'm like holding my breath at home, waiting for the call to see if I'm going to do the Tour. Sam, can you tell us about the Tour de France? I know you can't tell us probably your selection for the team, but tell us a little bit about, this time in the season, this tense time of selecting the Tour de France team. And then what is your team's sort of like global objectives, what we're going to see out of you guys for those 3 weeks in July?
Yeah, it's a hard and for our team this year, the selection was made throughout today, Tuesday. And it has been made just really recently. And the riders knew that. They knew that today was the day that they were going to be getting a call that they were going to the Tour de France, so they weren't. And it's a tough day for those guys, and it's a tough day for the management who are making the decisions as well, because we've had a really good couple of weeks. We obviously had a successful Dauphiné with Derek G finishing third. We had a successful Tour of Switzerland with Matthew finishing 5th, and we had a lot of good team support from a number of guys throughout those 2 races. So the selection, I can imagine, I'm not part of the official selection, but I can imagine was really, really difficult. And the riders understand that as well. When you have a list of 10 or 11 riders or 12 riders, there's going to be a few guys that are going to miss out, and there's going to be a few guys that are going to be disappointed, and that's really hard. It's a hard conversation to have with them, I'm sure, and it's hard for those guys to deal with it as well. But thankfully for us, it was a hard decision from all accounts, because we had a long list of riders with everybody performing really well at those 2 races recently, and essentially at the end of the day, you have to make a decision. You have to choose your 8 riders, and for us, we're going to the Tour de France with a big focus on winning stages, and it's about spreading the riders across 21 days to give ourselves as many opportunities as we can, based on all the different types of stages and different types of terrains, and of course analyzing the stages and the tour, and understanding which days are going to be the best for us and who is going to be the best rider for those specific stages. So we've tried to make a team that's capable of creating opportunities across the 3 weeks to win a stage at minimum, but hopefully even more.
I'm just going to be journalist a little bit here. I mean, you guys have a good track record of that. Like, you've won Tour de France stages the past 2 years. Are you finding in the internal sort of like feeling, does that build confidence, or all of a sudden is there like a pressure of like, whoa, we're 2 for 2 the past 2 years. Like, we're under the pump to like make this happen again. We've now raised the standard, and the new standard is we got to win a stage.
Yeah. I don't know if we're under the pump, or I don't know if there's pressure, but it's the expectation for sure. Every single team wants to win a stage at the Tour de France, and some teams obviously focus on winning GC. Those guys generally win about 20 stages along the way, but ultimately the objective is to put your hands in the air with at least one rider throughout the Tour de France. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily pressure, but there's certainly an expectation that's what we want to or should leave the Tour de France with, is at least a stage win. And that's why the selection's so hard, because you have to pick the right horses for the right courses, and that makes things difficult.
Well, I'm happy for you guys that it sounds like that decision's been made. We'll know soon. Your Tour de France team will be announced. We'll be anxiously awaiting as more Tour de France teams are announced the next few days. Sam, it's been awesome talking. Wishing you all the best at the tour the first 2 weeks when you're going to be there, and then wishing you the best with the entrance into fatherhood. And we'll look forward to having you back on Beyond the Podium for the next show. So until then, thanks everyone for tuning in to this edition of Beyond the Podium, and we will see you next time.